Greetings, everyone. It's Crime Talk with Corinne, and I am back with episode 2. This is really exciting. And I want to start off by saying thank you to everyone for sharing my video, liking my video, subscribing to my channel. I just put out episode 1 last week. You guys have been absolutely amazing. I just wanted to start this video off by saying thank you very much. I appreciate it. You guys are amazing. All right, so this is episode 2, and we are going to get right into it. Today, I want to talk about the mountain of evidence, right? So, Friday, December the 1st was a very big day. We were all holding our breath, and we were, sitting on the edge of our seats waiting to see if the state was going to turn over the IGG information that we had all been waiting for. Not only have we been waiting for this, to see since October if they were going to turn it in by December the 1st, the defense has been asking for this for almost a year now. So they started their first supplemental request for discovery back in January, I think. And the state has dragged this along the entire time. And there's so many people that I see in the comments on YouTube videos and on Twitter, and they're all like, if he's innocent, why would he want to sit in jail? If he's innocent, why would he want to sit in jail? And then it's like, well, wait a minute. Why is he just supposed to move forward without the discovery he's due? Dive out the window and get into what I really want to get into. I do want to basically just go over just the history of what we've been dealing with for any newcomers, anybody who, needs a refresher, because I know sometimes we get stuck on the most recent thing. And so the most recent thing is the IGG information, and they had the court hearing, and so we heard what was said about whether or not they were going to be able to produce it. But that's the most recent thing, and we can't just get hung up on what we heard last. Sometimes we need to take a step back and look at the full picture. And so the full picture starts in the very beginning, right? And so we've heard over and over and over and over again that there's this mountain of evidence, right? They have Brian Koberger did the rights. It's definitely him. Everybody that thinks he's guilty or everybody that thinks he's innocent is foolish, blah, blah, blah. Because they have so much evidence. So I, spent a few days going through the court documents and found some stuff that I want to talk about. So let's start with the fact that the state provided 10,000 pages of reports and other written materials, approximately 10,200 photographs, approximately 9,200 tips, and 51 terabytes of audio and digital material. Some people may think 51 terabytes, there's your mountain of evidence. No, it's not. I believe that the state tried to bog down the defense with a mountain of paperwork and a pile of nothing, so that way they would have to sort through it in order to see if what it is that they're looking for is actually in there. So they essentially provided them with the haystack for them to find a needle in. So, of course, the defense asked for more time because it's like, y'all gave us a gang of papers and stuff, so we have to go through it all. And they were awarded more time, rightfully so. But somehow, Ann Taylor and her I guess, army of paralegals was able to sort through all of that and know what they were looking for was not included. So then what happens? The defense puts in a request for discovery. The state says, we gave you everything. The defense submits another request for discovery. The defense is like, I gave them this, I gave them that. They even have access so they can take a look for themselves and blah, blah, blah. All this. This starts in January. So then we get a request from the defense, and they're saying that we need the IgG information. We need the DNA stuff. And they're like, the defendant believes that in this report is exculpatory information. So now we're all like, ooh, exculpatory information. What could it be? What could it be? So now we're trying to figure out what is going on, because now they're talking about exculpatory information and we are like, but the state comes back and again, they're saying that they gave everything that they have. Specifically, a document dated May 12th. It says, in regard to the specific request for standard lab discovery, the state has already provided the defense with everything it has received from the FBI lab. The state has also provided the defense with approximately 30 reports from the Idaho State Police Lab. So the defense is constantly asking for the same thing over and over and over again. And every time they ask, the state comes back with, I gave you everything. You see how much we gave you? I gave you everything. You see how much we gave you? And then when that, got, I guess, old, then they threw in the protective orders, right? So now we don't want to give up the names of the informants. We don't want innocent people, the hundreds of relatives. And so then they started with all of that. Was when Brian Koberg, or when the defense said that we need this report because we believe that there's exculpatory information. And the state said, what exculpatory information? Which I thought was absurd. Because it's like, how can you ask me? I'm telling you that you're not giving me everything. And then you turn around and say, well, what am I not giving you? And I just really feel like that for the past year, the state has been playing games. And so when I wanted to make this video, initially, my reasoning for making this video was I'm trying to figure out what we were actually waiting for on Friday. Because several times the state said that this information did not exist. So that was my initial reason for wanting to make this video. I had originally intended to put it out the Wednesday before IgG Day, but life happened. Here we are, the Monday after. So there was a piece of information that I was looking for, and it took me a little bit to find it, but I did not want to make this video without it. And so this may have slipped some folks' minds, or, it has not been talked about a whole lot. I want to say the only person that I remember hearing it from was Jules of Autry. She talked about this months ago. So, in the very beginning, and I'm talking before Brian Kohberger was arrested. Matter of fact, I want to say it was the day before Brian Kohberger was arrested. Dawn Daniels, a police officer from Washington, I believe, or police officer, detective, some law enforcement official from Washington, submitted a supplemental disclosure. And I'm going to read a part of it. It says, this information is being provided to the court pursuant to my duty and obligation to be fully candid with the court. I do not believe this information is exculpatory for the suspect. However, if the court believes it is exculpatory, then the court should consider this supplemental disclosure in its evaluation of the existence of probable cause or the lack thereof. But I am specifically asking the court to not consider this supplemental disclosure as evidence supporting the existence of probable cause. The reason for this request is that if the DNA results are held inadmissible at some point, such a ruling would not impact the finding of probable cause for this warrant, so long as this court is satisfied as to probable cause regardless of the DNA result. So what I want to know is, why is it that a day before Brian Kohberger is arrested, a law enforcement agent is writing words like exculpatory and inadmissible in her report? What made Dawn Daniels think that at some point this information was going to be inadmissible or could possibly be viewed as exculpatory? And if Dawn Daniels, before Brian Kohberger was arrested, thought that DNA information, the DNA evidence, was going to be possibly, maybe, you might think it's inadmissible. I don't. It's not really exculpatory, but maybe I can see why you would think it is. Why, if prior to his arrest, if Dawn Daniels thought that it maybe could be exculpatory, inadmissible information, why is it that when the defense team asked for this information and said, hey, we think that there could be exculpatory information in there, why did the state act like they didn't know what they were talking about? How is it that your people, because law enforcement, that's the state, right? Law enforcement, y'all are providing the information to the prosecution, correct? So I'm pretty sure the piece of paper that I saw that said from Dawn Daniels, it's my obligation to be fully candid with the court. First of all, when you start leading with a disclaimer, girl, what do y'all have going on down there? What do y'all have going on down there? Because it's really giving that Dawn Daniels said she had got wind of some foolishness going on somewhere in between Pullman and Moscow. And she said, listen, I know you got reports from a gang of other people, but Your Honor, I don't have nothing to do with this. So I'm going to put this little post-it note on the back of my report and tell you that, maybe you don't want to look at this part. is what it's really giving. Because if you look at the probable cause affidavit, I don't even remember how many pages it was, but they didn't say anything about the DNA until the very end. But my main question is, if you take the DNA out and all you have, no DNA, boom, no, take the knife sheath completely out of the conversation. If all you have is a white Hyundai Elantra driving around town, and all you have is somebody who turned their phone off, and from like 2:30 to 5:30 or something like that, is that enough? Without, because what Dawn Daniels is saying is, hey, I think that there's probable cause even without the DNA. So if you think it's exculpatory, just look at the rest of the report. But if you don't think it's exculpatory, then just include it. What? Do you think that without the DNA, there's probable cause? Do you think that without the DNA, without his DNA being at the scene, they had enough to arrest him? Because in my mind, if they had enough information without the DNA, they could have obtained his DNA to match it to the knife sheath without having to contact the people in Pennsylvania to dig through through his dad's trash. Right or wrong? I could be wrong. I'm not a law enforcement agent, unfortunately. But it seems like if y'all had enough to pin him to the wall without the DNA, you could have attained the DNA in a way that wouldn't have Dawn Daniels write down weird stuff, talking about, oh, it might be exculpatory. I don't think it is if it's deemed unadmissible. Girl, what? Now we're side-eyeing the whole thing, because why are you saying it might be inadmissible? I saw a video that had popped up on my suggested on YouTube, and it was titled something like Idaho 4, Where's the Outrage? And every time I talk about this, I get worked up because, number one, I believe that Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana deserve justice. I do not believe Bryan Kohberger being convicted and sentenced to death is justice for those 4 young people who died on November the 13th, 2022. That's my personal opinion. And so I get upset because I don't know Bryan Kohberger from a hole in the wall. It's nothing personal. I don't like the guy. I am not a Bryan Kohberger fangirl by any stretch of the imagination. However, I personally don't like when people play in my face. And I feel like the mountain of evidence that we have here is a hologram at best. They have absolutely nothing on this man. Even if the DNA, touch or trace DNA, was on the knife sheath prior to them going to Pennsylvania and digging in his dad's trash, even if the DNA was on the knife sheath to begin with, that does not prove that that man was ever in that house. Even if that was his car driving back and forth 52 times, and y'all had him off camera for 16 minutes, that does not prove that he is the one who entered into that house and did the crime. I think it's crazy the amount of people who believe that this man appears more guilty than the kids who did not appear drunk on the body cam footage at the band field. I already talked about the roommates. I'm not going to talk about them today. I just think that there is a whole lot of suspicious activity going on around that house and around those 4 kids that night. And then Brian Koberger, they just pulled him out of nowhere. I think it's crazy. And when you factor in the phone calls, and I said I was going to do a separate video about that. But when you factor in the phone calls, and now some guy, Lucky something, and then Harsh was talking about it, and then Thought Riot kind of picked up on it. And so they're trying to figure out whether or not Kaylee's dad said that she called 911 or not. But something weird was in the air that night. And it wasn't just Brian Koberger possibly, allegedly, presumably driving up and down their street. That's not it. And so I'm just trying to figure out, where is the mountain of evidence? Where is the mountain of evidence? If the DNA is the mountain of evidence, what about the 3 unidentified male DNAs that were found at the scene that the state did not bother having tested? If the DNA is the smoking gun, why not test all the DNAs that you found there? Why did y'all go digging through trash, making up fake profiles, getting it transferred from this lab to that lab over here, to do all this to make sure that you identify Brian Koberger, but then you have 3 dusty DNA samples over here now for over a year that you didn't even bother to test? How do you know that Brian Koberger didn't go in there with 3 other dudes and they all killed one of the kids at the same time? How do you know that? Why didn't you think to test these DNAs to see who they belong to so y'all can swoop up everybody? Isn't that what y'all do? Isn't that what the police do when they're going to raid somebody's, when they're trying to do a raid to catch somebody? Y'all run down on every location that they're known to be at the same time, so this person can't tell that person. So when Brian Koberger was arrested, if he actually said, has anyone else been arrested, and y'all have 3 other DNA samples, why didn't y'all test them? But my question is, if the DNA is the mountain of evidence, y'all have more DNAs, why isn't that part of the mountain? I don't understand. The state has said they wanted to submit the lemony or whatever it was called form or request or whatever to exclude having to turn over this IgG information. And they were saying that it was irrelevant, and they kept saying that they weren't going to use it. And I'm like, well, if the court of public opinion, if the people believe that the DNA is the mountain of evidence, why is the state saying that they're not going to use it? Then, this might be the last thing. Then, aside from all of that, right before, as we're waiting for the December 1st documents, then we get the other document drop where they listed the 5 things or 6 things that they were trying to seal. And they were basically saying that they didn't want to turn over their techniques or something like that. I'll put the image in the form in here. I don't remember exactly what it said right now. But y'all didn't want to turn over. Y'all don't want to turn over how y'all did what y'all did. If the defense is saying something's fishy, some of the law enforcement is saying something's fishy. And the FBI saying, we're not telling you. It seems like something's fishy. And I want to be very clear. I don't know if Bryan Kohberger did it or not. I said on my TikTok, if you're not following my TikTok, go see some of my previous TikToks about Bryan Kohberger and the Idaho 4. I said months ago, I believe that Bryan Kohberger was somehow involved. I don't think he is the one that was responsible for unaliving anyone, but I do believe that he was somehow involved. And I think that somebody gave him up. And I think that he knows that somebody gave him up. And so he's trying to prove or have things disproven, so he doesn't have to say what his involvement was. Again, that's just my thoughts and theories. They are liable to change, as time goes on. But that's what I thought from, pretty early on, and nothing has changed my mind yet. I do, like I said, I feel like he, somehow got roped into something. But I don't think that he was oblivious. I don't think that he was the killer. And I don't think that he was surprised when they, showed up. I don't know if that makes sense to y'all, but that's just my theory. But that's all I have. I had a gang of notes. My note cards got mixed up. I couldn't figure out what order. I hope I covered everything. If I didn't, y'all were there too. These are just my thoughts on where we are with the DNA, the IgG, and the mountain of evidence. If you know of anything that I'm forgetting as far as the mountain of evidence, let me know. I know some people believe that Dylan, being the star witness or eyewitness, holds some kind of weight. I might talk about that too. I don't know. But I don't. Just to throw that out there, I don't want to hold anybody in suspense. I don't think her testimony or eyewitness account would hold up. I don't think the car holds up. I don't think the cell phone holds up. The DNA, they don't even think the DNA is going to hold up, which is obvious. That's my whole point here, is by the way that Dawn Daniels, the way that the prosecutor, the way that the FBI, the way everybody's acting behind this DNA, you can tell that they are trying to, they're probably like kicking stuff, swiping their desk, like, oh, I wish they would forget we ever even said it. No, we're not going to forget you even said it. Somebody, and I'm going to wrap up with this, somebody said that they think that the state was a little bit overzealous. They got a little ahead of themselves, and they thought that Bryan Kohberger was going to settle. They thought that once he heard the death penalty was on the table, that he was going to fold. And now that he's basically calling their bluff, I feel like they want to turn up the heat, but I don't think that they have anything to turn the heat up with. I think that this is foolishness. I don't think that they have anything. Some people think there's going to be a trial by ambush and they're just going to show up with some crazy actual mountain of evidence, and I don't. I think that the reason that they are playing these games, the reason it's being dragged out from here to there, is because they don't have anything. And I think it's crazy that people think that it's defense that's dragging things out. And you had 10 supplemental requests for the same thing. They've been asking for it the entire 2023 from January and didn't get it till December the 1st. Asking for the same exact thing. And I want to know what in the world. Ooh, that is a part I forgot. I want to know what they possibly turned over, because what they said was that when the FBI did the family tree and did the whole IGG situation, that there was no notes. So they created this profile, and this did not create any paperwork. And the only thing that existed was the actual tree. That's what they've been saying, that there was nothing. And that once Bryan Kohberger was arrested, the profile was removed from the system, and the only way to recreate it would be to add it back in. That's what they've been saying this whole time. So what did y'all turn over? What were we waiting for? Like, y'all said that there was nothing. I don't know how many times the prosecution is going to stand up in court and say that the defense is asking for stuff that doesn't exist. Sir, that's the problem. It should exist. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not trying to muddy the waters. If there were 3 DNA profiles at the scene, we would expect that they would have been tested. If you say that you guys got the DNA off the knife sheath and this is how you came to know that it was Bryan Kohberger, and in order to confirm that, these are the steps that you took to locate his dad and match the DNA, and all, if that's all that you did, we would expect that there's evidence of that. We would expect that you guys would be showing your work, because in a case of this magnitude, with 4 students killed at a college, university, we would expect that you wouldn't want this case to fall apart. You wouldn't want the bottom to fall out like a wet paper bag. You would want to cross every T and dot every I. So when the defense asks for evidence, discovery, 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 times, it's not like she's saying that aliens came down and committed this crime, or Bigfoot, or the Loch Ness Monster. That would be a conspiracy theory. That's not what's happening here. It's what is being asked for is reasonable. And the state is acting like what they're asking for is absurd. And then people who do not think critically or on their own at all just pick up that the state is saying that this is outrageous. And now they keep on with, oh, the defense is being outrageous. They're asking for things that should be there. And if Bryan Kohberger is guilty and the state dropped the ball this bad, it's going to be sad. It's going to be sad. And when the families got together and reserved their right to sue, this is why. That's all I have for today. I'll be back.